Welcome back to the Anatomy of Achievement. I'm Kiara, psychology graduate and head scientist of this lab. In this lab, we discuss what constitutes healthy ambition and why some ambition can feel heavy, and how we can discern between them so that our approach to achievement is sustainable. We begin this lab with a question: what does unhealthy ambition and Drake's bunda have in common? They're both heavy. If you don't get the joke, open your browser, search up BBL space Drizzy, clear your history, and then return to this episode prepared to learn. The reason I chose to explore ambition and discern healthy ambition from unhealthy ambition is because of this substack I read called "Is Having a Boyfriend Embarrassing?" I know it sounds irrelevant, but stay with me. It made me realize that currently we are exposed and connected to the entire world through social media every day. The collective opinion is hugely impacting what we think. An article like this goes viral and the collective opinion is impacted. People stop sharing pictures of their partners because now it's widely considered cringe. Very similarly, I've seen a lot of 2026 New Year's content go out that pushes against organization, goal setting, drive, discipline, ambition, and to the movement's credit, it is in favor of lived experiences, being in the moment, nervous system regulation, etc. However, I found myself feeling this quote-unquote embarrassment for having a renewed sense of, let's call it, traditional ambition. So that inspired this clickbait episode to ask the question, is ambition embarrassing now? Which, of course, is a play on, is having a boyfriend embarrassing? What the collective is demonizing is unhealthy ambition. The one that doesn't allow space or facilitate the lived experience and the presence and the alignment with your identity. So the real question here is not, is ambition embarrassing? But rather, what does healthy ambition look like? And what does unhealthy ambition feel like? Let's start the dissection. Like any good scientist, we must first quantify the variables we're working with. The variable we're working with today is ambition, which is the desire and determination to achieve success. When reviewing recent contributions to healthy ambition, I stumbled upon the work of Professor of Psychology Ron Carucci, who has posited a framework for healthy ambition. Carucci puts forward these three key expressions of healthy ambition. They are vision, resilience, and growth. These expressions are nested in his larger system of purposeful effort towards a goal, which is, say it with me now, healthy ambition. 3, 2, 1. Healthy ambition. Let's do a dive into these three expressions with an example of my own, of course. First, vision. The destination, the goalpost, or whatever it is you define as a successful outcome. Carucci posits that for healthy ambition, the vision must be both challenging and realistic. For example, this year I plan to sight read a lot more playing piano, which is reading actual music scores and playing it as you read. For this to be a healthy vision / goalpost, it has to be challenging, but also realistic. But how do we know what is the right amount of challenge? Enter the father of flow. I will be referring to him as Daddy Flo from here on out because his actual last name wouldn't even fit on a passport. I'll spell it just for our readers back home. CSIKZENTIMIHALYI. Csikszentmihalyi. Anyways, Daddy Flo is the originator of a robust body of research in psychology and neuroscience that says that these are the percentages of flow. 80 to 90% slay. Slay as a variable is defined as to easily execute or greatly impress, and 10 to 20% challenge. This percentage equates to around 4% above your current capability each time. So if I am currently able to sight read at a level, my vision or goal would be a piece that I can slay 80 to 90% of the sight reading, and 10 to 20% of the piece should be a struggle for me to get right. This percentage would encourage flow when working towards a greater goal and has protection against boredom, which would happen if you slayed more than 90%, or discouragement, which would happen if you struggled with more than 20%, both of which lead to reduced motivation and reduced goal attainment. This system designed by Daddy Flow will keep your motivation and dopamine release optimal, and your habit formation encourages ingraining the vision, the goal, into your identity. Now, this body of research on flow is so much more expansive than this, but I've simplified it here so we can nut out this healthy ambition framework with a bit more clarity. So that was the first of 3 expressions of healthy ambition. This one was vision. Secondly, resilience. Achieving a goal that is both challenging and realistic requires learning, adapting, and potentially failing in the process. If we're thinking about that 10 to 20% of struggle, it doesn't necessarily end in success. For example, if I'm working on the sight reading piece and there are a few bars that I just cannot get right, I initially fail, I keep going over and over them until I slowly get it right. That is demonstrating resilience. Resilience in response to failures is what facilitates the learning, the adapting, and it makes the goal, the vision, feel worth it. This concept is demonstrated in a group setting. Insert personal anecdote here. There's this story my social psychology professor told us about, which is how the army uses resilience to foster loyalty in the Navy. The principle in social psychology is creatively called effort justification, but they don't tell the cadets that. Elite military units deliberately make initiation or training brutally difficult, sometimes absurdly so. This not only builds skills, but also binds identity. For example, Hell Week in Navy SEAL training. When people invest extreme effort, pain, or humiliation into joining a group or on an individual level achieving a goal, any later doubts create physical discomfort, and to reduce that discomfort, the mind upgrades the value of the group or of the goal. In the example of Hell Week, the cadets have been resilient against so much challenge that the value of their group or their vision is worth it. This can translate on an individual level. If you're resilient against the struggles, that 10 to 20%, it fosters an increasing sense of the goal being worth it. It gets constantly upgraded in your mind. This encourages persistence and commitment to the vision. That was 1, vision, 2, resilience, and lastly, we dive into growth. You know those quotes that your parents send you on WhatsApp that's like, it's not about the destination, it's about who you become in the process, and there's like dolphins jumping in the sunset and whatnot. Well, according to Professor Carucci, it is about the destination, aka the vision. Sorry, Dad. But also about the person you become in the process, aka growth. The final expression of Carucci's framework is growth. The variable of growth is defined as the acquisition of skill and/or knowledge in the pursuit of success. Growth in the example of sight reading would be becoming a more skilled piano player, being able to pick up a piece of music and be able to play it on sight. Oh my gosh, on sight, reading, sight. Thank you so much. This is an expression of growth. So those are our 3 expressions of healthy ambition: vision, resilience, and growth. Now we ask the question, what distinguishes healthy ambition from unhealthy ambition? Here is a quick fire healthy versus unhealthy according to Rucci. Healthy ambition, purpose-driven. Unhealthy, ego-driven. Healthy, builds others. Unhealthy, uses others. Healthy, long-term focus. Unhealthy, short-term extraction. Healthy, secure identity. Unhealthy, fragile identity. Healthy, values impact. Unhealthy, craves validation. This unhealthy ambition is what I would call embarrassing if I wrote a substack, which I probably will after this episode. Healthy ambition is vision, resilience, growth. Unhealthy ambition is ego-driven, connected to fragile identity, and craves validation. It also feels heavy. Let's dissect. The reason why unhealthy ambition feels heavy is because it's fueled by too much extrinsic motivation and too little intrinsic motivation. For us to identify unhealthy ambition, we must understand what the balance of extrinsic versus intrinsic motivation is for that particular ambition. The psychological constructs of ambition and motivation are inextricably linked across the research. On a rudimentary level, we can compare the interplay between ambition and motivation to a GPS and a car. Think of ambition as the GPS, determining the direction, the end destination, and think of motivation as the car, the energy and drive, pun intended, to get to the destination. If you only had a GPS, you'd know where to go and why, but without the car, you wouldn't go anywhere. And if you had a car with no GPS, you'd be driving and covering distance, but it would be aimless. This concept is demonstrated in research where ambition, GPS, without motivational underpinnings, car/driving, is presented as wishful thinking. Motivation as a psychological construct is explored in self-determination theory, or SDT. If you're trying to impress someone in the psych realm, call it SDT. SDT was first developed in the 80s, then refined in 2000 and again 2017, but at its core suggests that quality of motivation matters more than quantity. The quality of motivation is determined by the type of motivation. Remember that unhealthy ambition feels heavy because there's too much extrinsic motivation and too little intrinsic motivation. Broadly speaking, extrinsic motivation is doing something for external reward or recognition. Think money, status, approval, Harvey Specter type beat. Intrinsic motivation is doing something because it's inherently satisfying, because you love it. Think that one activity that makes you lose track of time: writing, playing sport, creating, crocheting. Now, in psychology, very little is black or white, and motivation is no different. So we conceptualize motivation on a continuum. On the far left, we have controlled. Across to the far right, we have autonomous. Extrinsic motivation sits on the left in the controlled region, and intrinsic motivation sits on the right in the autonomous region. Because it's a continuum, motivation can also fall somewhere between these points. For example, if it's still considered extrinsic motivation, but it's leaning more autonomous, this is known as identified regulation or integrated regulation. Lots of words, I know, don't freak out, let's clarify. We have the continuum. On the left, we have controlled, extrinsic motivation. In the middle, we have a more autonomous form of extrinsic motivation, and on the right, we have autonomous, intrinsic motivation. According to self-determination theory, the closer motivation is to intrinsic, the more sustainable and fulfilling the ambition is. In the context of ambition, controlled forms of extrinsic motivation mean you're doing things for reward or out of guilt, shame, or pressure. This is Harvey Specter when the managing partner comes into the office and says, "If you want to be managing partner one day, you better close that goddamn deal because you shit the bed, Harvey." Harvey feels guilty and he feels pressure and he wants the reward of becoming managing partner. So his motivation is controlled extrinsic motivation. The autonomous form of extrinsic motivation, more in the middle of the continuum, means you're still doing things for the reward, but you can recognize your personal value in the ambition, or it aligns with your values and your identity. Think Rachel Zane. She does work hard so that her dad can see her as a legitimate lawyer, but she also is deeply connected to the work that she does. It's part of who she is. It is integrated regulation. Intrinsic motivation, autonomous, is doing something because it is inherently enjoyable and interesting. Think Mike Ross, practicing law, not even getting paid. He's just doing it because he loves it. While we're subtly talking about suits, I'll tell you about my first day of law school. No joke. The lecture started, and the very first day she said, if you hate reading, withdraw from this course before the deadline. If you are here for a job that makes you rich, withdraw from this course before the deadline. And then she started the lecture. This is conveniently an excellent demonstration of what we've been talking about this whole episode. Intrinsic motivation, e.g., love reading, predicts long-term persistence, performance, and psychological health, specifically demonstrated in actually a group of law students in a 2014 study, which showed that students pursuing intrinsic reasons for study, like interest or value, had higher well-being and lower depression than their extrinsically motivated counterpart. Further research shows that healthy ambition fueled by intrinsic motivation feels lighter, fuels creativity, and sustains us long term. Extrinsic motivation can still drive us, but it comes with baggage. When ambition leans too heavily on external reward, it's ego-driven, reliant on validation, and it's connected to a fragile sense of identity. Here's where it ties back to the question, is ambition embarrassing now? In this toxic hustle culture, ambition is often sold to us as almost entirely extrinsic: promotions, follow accounts, net worth, pics or it didn't happen. This form of ambition is unhealthy, and I would say unhealthy ambition is embarrassing because it's 2026, baby. We're not on that external validation thing. We are intrinsically motivated. We have vision and resilience and growth, and we can work hard at our goals, and we can be incredibly proud of the work we put in. So no, healthy ambition is not embarrassing, and if anyone tries to argue with you, tell them about Daddy Flow, send them the link to this episode. Please, that would really support my podcast. We move now to the experiment for this lab, which is the part of the episode where I give you something to workshop based on what we've dissected in the lab so far. Today's experiment is short, a few simple questions which can help you identify the motivation for your ambitions. So you can kind of audit your ambitions and find out which ones are embarrassing. I mean, unhealthy. All these questions are answering one big daddy question, which is this ambition helping me become more whole or more hollow? If the answer is it's making you become more whole, this is healthy ambition. If the answer is it's making you become more hollow, the answer is it's unhealthy / embarrassing. But please stay for the other questions if you really want to dive in. 1, purpose versus ego. What are you trying to accomplish, and why does it matter beyond you? If no one ever knew you did this, would it still feel worth doing? What would success make true about you? If your answers orbit validation, status, proving your worth, this is more of an unhealthy pull towards ambition. If they orbit contribution, impact, meaning, this is a healthier pull. 2, relationship to power and control. This is like atting me. This is me to a T. Do I need control to feel safe? Bruh. How do I react when others get credit or visibility? What happens inside me when I'm challenged? do I surround myself with people who tell me the truth? The things you want to listen for is defensiveness and credit hoarding. This signifies more of a fragile ego response, whereas curiosity, shared ownership, these signal inner security. 3. Relationship to failure and feedback. What does failure of this ambition mean about me? What feedback do I resist hearing? How quickly do I move to justify, blame, or explain away setbacks? If your answers are more defensive or rigid, then failure threatens identity. This is an unhealthy pull. Whereas if it's more adaptive and the failure informs learning, this is a healthier pull. Finally, number 4, willingness to walk away. Under what conditions would I stop pursuing this? If this goal no longer served its purpose, could I release it? Who am I without this ambition? Unhealthy ambition cannot imagine an off-ramp for your ambition. There is zero tolerance or willingness to walk away. Whereas healthy ambition, there is that if this happened, then I could walk away from it. And that is a healthier pull. That concludes our lab for today. Please make sure to rate this podcast wherever you're listening so I can be externally validated. Just kidding. I do this because I love it. And I'll see you in the lab next week. Don't be late.